lately I've had a bit of people come to my page and ask what technique it is I use to have this recognition, to attain this recognition, which I'm gonna tell you, but I think first it's important to understand just what spiritual work is, and then look at yourself and see if you've actually attempted to do it in any way aside from just reading something in a book or reading online, which is still, spiritual work in that sense. It's kind of an untangling of the mind. But if you just keep doing that, it's kind of like reading a workout book, a book that teaches you how to work out in the gym, and knowing it awesome. Like you know everything about it. Like you're the most awesome person at knowing this book. But you ain't gone to the gym a day in your life. Like you haven't done any lifting. You haven't put any stress in. So I can tell you the technique, but I think it's more important to understand the process after that. And don't get stuck with just this eye candy, this ear candy, hearing me talk about things and explain things. So I guess I'll start just from the very beginning of it. Once I got out of the Marine Corps, I was a Marine for 4 years. I just had some experiences that really showed me religion wasn't necessarily the truth. So I was curious. I created this page on Facebook, a private group, an open page as well. Closed minds never open doors. Just to have a place where I could explore these ideas and these theories and find out what the truth is. Just have a place where you can go to and unbiasedly look at that and kind of explore it for yourself. So, in doing that, I went through just about every theory, about every belief that you could go through. Not just myself, but just from people posting it in the group and talking about almost every theory you could possibly think of, every conspiracy theory, every belief, and just maybe not even engaging every time, just seeing what they have to say, providing a counter in my mind, that's not what it is, and then stepping away. Which, like I said before, these online transactions or interactions and reading things, in a sense, is spiritual work. This was a very good tool for untangling my mind, and it did lead me to what I'm about to say. But in going through all of these beliefs and these theories, I came across, again, meditation. Not that I'd never heard of it. I just thought that was kind of weak and pointless. Like, what would there be in the now? Like, I ain't doing nothing. I ain't thinking about nothing. How am I going to figure that out, right? So I just never thought to take it serious. But I came across in the group, in my own little studies, there being a recognition in the now of how it is one. And I'm like, what? So how do you do this? And the only way you could have this recognition was by being present. So I'm like, that's going to be easy. I'll do that. Quickly I found out that calming my mind was not easy at all. And being a Marine and just being a competitive person, the egoist, prior to that, I was pretty challenged by this. I didn't like that I couldn't stop my mind from thinking. That it, like I noticed it just was racing without me contributing to that. And then I couldn't stop it when I wanted to, so I got to see if I can do this. And then on top of that, in that there's a recognition, so there's a kind of I don't want to say a reward in it, because there shouldn't be an aim or a goal to it necessarily. You're just going to keep yourself looking instead of seeing. But I was like, all right, I gave everything a shot, so I can't still my mind. I'm at least going to see if I can do that. And then if I can, we're going to see if this recognition is real or if somebody's just bullshitting me. Come to find out, they were not bullshitting, because And this is where I was talking about the spiritual work aspect of it. After finding this and recognizing, oh, there's possibly something in the present that I can recognize, I went at it for about 7 days, as hard as you could. I don't want to say hard in the sense of, I just had this deep looking, I understand you have to relax back into your being and just be a witness for this recognition to occur, but I was pretty motivated. So for about 7 days, as soon as I would wake up, I would just look at the floor. And I guess this would be the technique of meditation where you're just focusing on an object away from you until the mind is completely still, right? Only understood in order for this recognition to happen, for me to clear my mind and be able to attain that and hold it, in a sense, just a state of no mind, I was going to have to practice this more than just 15 minutes here and there. I was going to have to do this all day long. So instead of focusing on just an object, as soon as I would wake up, I would look at the floor, or whenever I was walking, I would look at the floor and just keep my focus on the floor, like with everything outward, out here, right? As long as I was somewhat focused out here, my mind couldn't necessarily just continue to race. Like this mechanism of being present, the power of being present does overweigh the power of thought. You can't stop thought by itself. Just being present itself makes the thinking fade like a sigh, if you will. So as soon as I would wake up, I would just be focused on pretty much the ground or my walking, anything outward that could just anchor me to being present, right? So I could still walk and talk and do things while trying to remain present. And of course, throughout my day, often when I would forget to try and do this, just to try to be present. But I kept reminding myself, and I would focus on just the outside world in that way, in whatever I was doing. Not just setting aside 15 minutes of my time all throughout the day, every time I could remember, oh yeah, and just trying to be with the present. Of course, I was focusing on my breath as well, but to me, that almost made my seeing, in a sense, kind of more focused in here too. Like I was being more present, but I was aware that there was a recognition of something. So I was trying to see something outward, I guess you could say. So I wasn't focused so much on the technique of breathing, but just of being focused outwardly, just attention. Just my will was to be present and focused out on whatever was in front of me. So I think maybe that was a harder route, but I went that route. First couple days, the first 2 or 3 days, it seemed pretty solid. Like my seeing, it wasn't so easy just to see and be present with it. It's like I was kind of looking, like I was mentioning earlier, like I was focusing and putting my attention on the outwardness. So on top of that, with just the thinking still being a disease, a dis-ease in my mind, the first 2 or 3 days was just more solid. It wasn't so fluid. It wasn't so easy for me just to relax back and just be a witness, just to be a seeing. But by about that third or fourth day, it got to where I could be present on demand, pretty much. It wouldn't last for too long of a period. I would forget and just like, oh yeah, let me go back off into my mind and thinking and doing whatever I was doing at work. But whenever I would remember, hey, you need to try to be present, practice this, do this, work on yourself, do it. It was just no mind, instantly. It's like, I'm not the first one to come up with this analogy, but it's like if you were to just start walking out in the woods. You had a set of woods out in your backyard, right? And you want to start going out there every night. The first couple times you walk through the woods, down that same route, there's not going to be a trail. You're not going to be able to see where you had been walking prior. It's just still going to be kind of clustered. But the more you walk that path, the more you go that route, the more it becomes a little bit clear. The easier it is to go that route, just to go through there. There's no cluster to it. You're not stepping around this and that. It's just, I know how to get there. And that's what happened in my mind. Those 2 or 3 days that I was really trying to get there and do that, it was just walking through the woods, those same cluster of woods over and over until there was just a pathway there to where I could, boom, I'm present. And luckily I came across the insight of how you can't look for this. You can't be looking for it. That's almost a form of conceptualization. It's like if you know who Mary Jane is and then you go looking for her, you already know what she is. You have a preconditioned idea. You're looking. Seeing is different. You're just a witness. You're just set back, kind of like a security camera on a wall. It doesn't have no mind to it. It's just a witness. It's not focused on just one object in the room. Its view is widened. And this actually happens in your meditation and in this recognition. You go from just being focused in on one object or like whatever you're watching you on per se to just a seeing, and your view widens. Like this happens on a psychedelic as well. In the lower stages, it'll widen your view. It almost seem like things are brighter, but it's that your view has widened. Your perception has been widened. You're now allowing yourself to take everything in. You're not so much attention outward outward from yourself, which is just awareness, that your view widens. So anyway, by the fourth day or so, this became fluid, and it was to where I could go to this spot of no mind whenever I wanted. And like I was getting at, I was aware that you couldn't look for this. You had to just be a seeing. So once I was aware that I had developed being able to go to no mind quite easily, I started relaxing myself into seeing this. Okay, I knew there was a recognition there, and my attention didn't have to be focused so much outwardly to keep a still mind. So I just had to relax back into myself and just have no conceptualization, no preconditioned idea of what it was I'm even supposed to be looking for. How could I if I don't know what it is, right? So I just had to relax into my seeing and keep going there at work, as I'm clocking out, as I'm walking to my vehicle, in traffic. When you're driving is one of the best times to do this, because there's no better time than to be present and with what you're doing than when you're driving. Your mind makes all these excuses like, well, I can't meditate when I'm driving. What do you mean? You're supposed to be driving and like daydreaming about something, dude? So anyway, all throughout my day, all throughout my nights, at work, at home, I kept going to this spot, this gap. I call it the gap, no mind. And on about the seventh day, I was walking in Lowe's parking lot, just seeing, not necessarily, I had almost like forgotten that there was a recognition there. I just had started enjoying, hey, you know what? I found out this new trick of myself. I can be no mind. Let me see if I can walk all the way through this parking lot while I'm present and just have no mind to it, with no tension. And that's when it happened. I'm walking, and it was like my view just widened in this sense. It's not like, I could see more than what I could prior, like outside of my ability. It's just, I wasn't any longer focused on what was necessarily just in front of me. Like usually when you're walking, you're kind of looking at a couple feet in front of a couple feet in front of your feet, like the space in front of you, or, maybe off in the distance in front of you, but at a specific object. This was just a witnessing, just a seeing. So it was like once I had finally, as I was walking and just, I guess as I was walking and being present, I'd relaxed enough back into awareness just for it to widen, and then it just my view was widened and the recognition happened. Like if you've ever seen in my other video talking about the recognition, in that video, I'll give you a picture and I ask you, can you tell me what's in that picture? Do you see it? And then a lot of you say no, and then I'll tell you it's a cow. And you still can't necessarily see it. I'll draw the outline, and then you recognize the cow, right? You're like, oh. So it's a legit recognition. It was nothing about reality changed. It's just like in that video, the picture, nothing about the picture changed. I might have highlighted it for you after you couldn't see it, but then after I take the highlighter away, you recognize it perfectly. Oh, nothing about the picture changed. That cow was always there. Well, just like my dolphin analogy, nothing about the stars changed when I'm pointing up there and I say, hey, do you recognize the dolphin shape pattern? You may not recognize it at first, but then when you do, it's just a recognition. Nothing about the stars changed. Nothing about the pattern. You just had a recognition. And in this witnessing, while I was walking, my view widened. It seemed like things were a little bit brighter. And the recognition of, oh, this is all one thing. Like how in a dream, it's all just the same one consciousness, the same one thing. And like how in a dream, when you recognize you're dreaming, it's just like something kind of lifts off of you, right? It's almost too like you go from the perspective of the dreamer, like you're just looking from your eyes, to where when you recognize it's a dream, you almost kind of step back above yourself, right? It's not like you're actually outside of your head, but yeah, your view widens, so it feels like you're about up here, which I could see why they would say the third eye's up here, aside from the pineal gland. But it's because when you're in this witnessing, when you're in this seeing, it is almost as if you're like not here seeing and witnessing, but like here, like watching yourself almost in a way. I know that sounds magical and like super hocus pocusy, but just trust me, there's nothing, I'm not making it more than it is. It's not like you're literally like above yourself looking down. You're just a point of awareness. And yeah, so in that presentness, that recognition occurred, and it was just a shock. I instantly put my hand over my mouth like a kid. I was like, oh my, and like tried to like look and see it again, but I couldn't see it anymore because I instantly went back into my mind. Like as soon as it happened, my ego and my mind arose again and was just shocked. And I was like, yes, I did it. Yeah. So I went to looking for it, like, oh, how much, like back in the device of the mind, just being a looker instead of seeing, just relax and seeing it, right? So I was shocked, I was happy, I felt like I was at home, because after these experiences that took me away from religion, I was lost. I didn't know how or why I was here, and I wanted to know why. I couldn't believe that all these other religions and stuff were false in a sense. Not that there's not meaning to them, which I'll make that in another video. But the literal versions of them was not correct, if you take it literal. And that made me lost, and I wanted to be found. And that I could see. This recognition, there was no more ifs, ands, or buts. Like I didn't need to argue with you. I didn't need you to be going back and forth with me about, is there a start and end? Is that a concept of mind? Like I recognized how this was one whole thing, and there was no start and end at all. And that there was just no self to me in that way. Like that I was the whole. A real recognition. And I guess my point of this video is to express the work that this is. Like you can't just read about it, or you can't watch these videos and be like, yeah, that's awesome. And then, maybe you're going to go back to your phone or whatever it is you're doing in your mind after this video, but just make a point to, hey, I'm going to start trying to be present all throughout my day, at least at work. Just see if you can do it at work. Don't set time aside. Do not do that, because the whole aim, I don't even see the aim or the goal, but the whole point of meditation is for meditation to disappear, to where you're just utterly present 24/7 without trying. That's the aim. The meditation is no more. It's just as of now, mind is a disease, a dis-ease. It's a constant racing. So you have to create this tool, this technique, meditation, to kind of bring you back to that, if that makes sense. So you're making the tool of meditation to bring yourself back to the tool which doesn't need to exist in the first place, because your being is just a presentness, just being aware. Mind just clouds that, so you have to create that tool and keep going to that gap until the disease is gone. You're just utterly present. Because understand how this works. You might be awake right now watching this video, but that doesn't mean that you're making a conscious action or awake, in the sense of there's unconscious action, where if you were to reach for your cup or your wallet, but you weren't present while you were doing it, that's unconscious action. That's mechanical action, right? So you're just in your head. Unconscious mechanical action. But then you have conscious action, right? Where you're being present while you're reaching for the cup, while you're talking, you're aware while you're talking. Conscious action. But in that, what is there? There's still a fragrance of a doer. Hence, there's something in you having to try to be present, right? Have you noticed that? Just this fragrance of something in you that has to try to be present. The next step, the next stage is becoming a point of awareness, because the more you go to your meditation, it's like, let's go with the curl analogy, all right? Whenever you're thinking and your mind's racing, the curl is up, right? It's tense. And then whenever you go to that gap, the present, it drops. Your arms relax, right? The mind is relaxed. The aim of meditation is you're going with it so much, off and on, that the gaps widen. So now you can be present longer, and it's going to come up, and then one day that just drops, and it never rises back up again like that. You never have to try to be present. It's just happening on its own. That's the whole spiritual work of it. And we made it like a workout, like a curl, like you're curling something. That's what the mind's doing. So there's your aim is someday for that mind to never curl back up and just start racing and thinking unconsciously by itself. Not to say that you won't ever think again. It's just that when you think, it will be on your own accord, and it will be more precise. Or if a stream of thoughts arise in you, it's going to be from the whole, from awareness. Like, hey, I would like to go watch a movie, or I would like to go walk out in nature. It's beautiful today. And how can you tell that difference from me sitting here now and it being from the ego, the illusion of self, or just awareness from the whole, what I am? The difference is this. If I'm sitting here and I'm just being utterly present with myself, and a feeling of lack arises, and then I think, to get away from this, I would like to go walk outside. That's acting in the illusion of self, of ego. You're just trying to fill this void of the feeling of lack and fear. So when that feeling arises, and when the thoughts start racing, you continue this disease like an addiction by continually doing it, hence looking away and just thinking in your head and being unconscious. It's like being addicted to the drug, having the itch of it come, and then going and doing it. You're never going to have that sobriety, that presentness of yourself, unless you can stop doing that. So it's not to say that you won't ever have thoughts arise again. It's that if I'm being here utterly present, and I have that thought, and it's not from a feeling of lack, that's from awareness, that's from the whole, that's creativity. But if I make that same action from a feeling of lack, like I need to go fill this void, I don't like this feeling, I'm acting from a false center. The reason you feel that is because you're already in the illusion of this self being separate from something else, and you have to put your attention on everything else. That's what you're doing. When you're putting your attention outward, you're trying to become one with something else. It's just you would like to keep this illusion of self and that illusion of self and become one with it at the same time, because the illusion of self knows this. It knows that love, happiness is when it's not there, when that mind is not there. Notice that's what love is. Love is when two becomes one. There's no mind to it. You're treating the other as thyself. Both of you have just become awareness.